Welcome, dear students, to this class on Elegy. In one of the previous classes, we have discussed different genres of poetry: ode, sonnet, elegy, dramatic monologue, ballad, epic, and so on. So, before going to the poem, let's take a look at elegy. So, what is an elegy? An elegy is a poem of lament which expresses sad thoughts of a person who is dead and gone. It is commonly written in praise of the dead and has an air of melancholy around it. The word elegy originated from the Greek word elegia, which means to be sad, to lament, to be sorrowful. In Greek and Roman literature, any such poem which was written in elegiac meter, that is, irregular hexameter and pentameter lines on subjects like death, loss, love, and battle, was denoted by the term elegy. The medieval poems like The Pearl, The Wanderer, The Seafarer are such elegies. The Renaissance brought a revival of elegiac poems and their introduction to English literature. English poets focused their elegiac verse primarily on death and loss of a beloved. In the 17th century, the term elegy meant a formal and sustained lament in verse on the demise of a particular individual. As a literary device and poetic form, elegy encompasses themes that represent a poet's deep and meaningful personal reflections. One example is Thomas Gray's elegy written in a country churchyard, which is about the transience of life and fame. Other examples are Astrophel by Spenser, Adonai by Shelley, on the occasion of the death of John Keats, In Memory of W.B. Yeats by W.H. Auden, Thyrsis by Arnold, In Memoriam by Tennyson, O Captain, My Captain by Walt Whitman, and so on. An elegy usually comprises of three stages of grief. The first stage, that is the expression of grief, a lament where the speaker expresses his sorrow for the dead. Second stage involves praising the dead, praise and admiration for the idealized dead. The final stage, that is of consolation and solace. It ends with the hope of reconciling with the dead beloved in the heavenly abode. The language and structure of an elegy is formal and very ceremonial. An elegy may be based on either the transience of life of a person or the attractiveness and magnificence of the dead, the one who is very close to the speaker's heart. An elegy may search for answers to questions related to the nature of life, death of this mortal body, the immortality of the soul, and so on. Other conventions of an elegy include the use of repetitions, refrains, repeated questions, outbursts of anger, procession of mourners, the poet's reflection on the unkindness of death, resentment against cruel fate, and concludes with the images of resurrection. Let's see the different categories of elegy. They are threnody, monody, dirge, eulogy. So they are all different categories of elegy. Elegy, dire, and eulogy, they all serve similar purposes in relation to mourning and funeral services, but they are distinct from one another. An elegy is a poem that reflects on a subject or a person through sorrow and melancholy. Elegies are poems about the one who is no more. But a dirge is a brief hymn or song that expresses lamentation or grief and is composed generally to be performed at a funeral. A dirge is typically shorter and less reflective and meditative than elegy. On the other hand, a eulogy is a speech given as a part of a funeral service that is written in tribute and praise of someone who has recently died. Shakespeare's Full Fathom Five Thy Father Lies and William Collins' A Song from Shakespeare's Cymbeline are good examples of dirge. Threnody is used as an equivalent of dirge, but on the other hand, monody is used as an equivalent of elegy. John Milton describes his elegy Lycidas in the subtitle as a monody in which he grieves over the loss of his friend Edward King. But the main subtype of elegy is the pastoral elegy, which is a representation of both the poet and the person he laments as shepherds. In Latin, this word pastor means shepherd. The mourner and the mourned are in the guise of shepherds. This poetic term was initiated by the Sicilian Greek poet Theocritus and was later carried on by the Roman poet Virgil. This pastoral elegy dwells upon the subject of death and simplicity and serenity attributed to rural life and takes the form. And this form of poetry usually includes shepherds who express their emotions. So, this serenity and simplicity attributed to rural life is demonstrated in the lives of shepherds. The pastoral elegy takes the pastoral or the rural components and connects them to the expression of sorrow on a loss. The best example is Lycidas by John Milton. The conventions which are very specific to a pastoral elegy include the first and foremost thing, that is a pastoral context where the subject is represented as a shepherd, then use of myth, the invocation of a muse, the rebuking of nymphs for not being present to prevent the death, the poet's acceptance of certainty of death, and at the same time his unflinching hope for immortality. A procession of mourners, in this case maybe shepherds, sheep, god, animals, and even divine beings are introduced. The use of pathetic fallacy is another important feature, that is, the attribution of human emotions to nature. A sense of natural order being disrupted by death is shown, and we find catalogues of flowers and animals and the idealization of the dead person. So we can identify all these elements of a pastoral elegy in the poem Lycidas by John Milton. Thank you.